thanks for seeing us.
It's my pleasure.
How's the tour going so far?
It's going very well. This is our 4th gig, and yeah, they've all been really good. They've been quite different. We did the first gig was kind of a music pub gig, and the second one was a proper theatre, seated theatre kind of thing, which they both seem to work fine, you know, which is nice, because it's kind of a new thing for me, so I wasn't sure whether it would be more a kind of, you know, rocky gig or a theatre gig, but it seems that it can kind of do either. So, which is, yeah, in fact this is quite light because we're just doing 7 gigs in a row. With Ballad we normally do 11 in a row. In fact I think our next tour is something like 20 in a row. But it's just, I mean, the problem is the finances of it. If you have a day off, it's very expensive because you've got, particularly Ballad, you've got 12 people to put in a hotel for a day doing nothing. You know. Strategies we can say on the road. I go for a lot of little walks. That's what I do. That's my strategy. I always bring an improving book as well to read, and never actually read it. So that's quite good.
What's the book you're not reading this tour?
The J.M. Trevelyan's Social History of the 19th Century. I did actually get through his 18th century social history after about 3 tours of, you know, occasional dipping in. So yes, but I've not actually opened it this tour at all.
Going to the album, why did you choose to make a concept record?
It wasn't a choice so much as I wasn't actually thinking of doing another solo album, because the first solo album I just had all these songs lying about, and I thought they were good, and I thought, you know, I had to do something with them, and so that was the impetus behind the first album. But having done that, I didn't particularly feel the need to do another solo album. But then the idea for this album kind of popped out at me. In fact, listening to a friend of mine's album, Chris T.T., who's made a very kind of contemporary concept album in a sense, in that it was around the London bombings, and it's about the sort of reaction to that and the sort of erosion of civil liberty. So it's sort of a kind of a contemporary protest album, but yes, it's got this really apocalyptic kind of feel to it. That suddenly I was just listening to it, and I just thought, wow, that's, you know, that's what we should be doing, you know, because it's as a folkie, I spend a lot of time wandering around going, oh, what would this have been like 100 years ago, and what would, you know, wouldn't it have been nice to live in the 18th century, the 19th century, you know, early 20th century, any time other than now. Whilst, you know, drinking coffee at Starbucks and driving around in a, you know, 21st century car and enjoying it, all the perks of it. But, you know, that had that sort of mindset of an interest in the past, and of course, you know, the interesting thing about if at some point life returns in some respect to the kind of lifestyle that our ancestors for thousands of years had. You know, I think we forget that the lifestyle that we all live now is only, it's a flash in the pan, you know, it's only the last 50 years really, that maybe 100 years that we've kind of got used to this sort of rather strange existence. So, you know, so it struck me as a really kind of important thing to be thinking about, and as a musician that sort of naturally leads on to writing about and singing about. So that was the way I wrote it all is I had the basic idea and I let it mull over for about a year and jotted down lots of ideas, and so I ended up with reams and reams of little ideas. And the first song that I wrote, or that I had an idea, a line for, was Going Down to the Wasteland, which is probably the darkest song on the album. And then, but the more I thought about it, the more enthusiastic I became about it somehow, you know, and the more I saw that I became interested in not in what we will lose, but what we will get back, and so from then on, all the songs kind of, from my point of view, I don't know how it, obviously to a listener it's going to be a different experience, but from my point of view they all actually seem quite positive, and I should say I do think this is all very likely. You know, this isn't a theoretical thing for me. Like, you know, it seems to me that as soon as the oil starts to run out, the first thing that will happen is governments will start stockpiling oil, you know, and if you think of how, you know, a few lorries blockading the oil supply a few years ago and the whole country ground to a halt, you know, it makes you realise how easy, you know, how delicate the balance is, our dependence on oil. It's a very sort of unstable situation to be in. So I think it's very, very likely that at some point we're going to have to come to terms with not relying on cars, you know. And as soon as you don't rely on them, then actually they become redundant, because the whole point of them is that we're reliant on them. So anyway, the point is that it is something that I think will happen, whether it's in our lifetime or, you know, whenever, you know, and I mean the oil will literally run out at some point. So it is.
With your other projects, to play songs live before you record them, and in this instance you've laid them all yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, to an extent, yes. I mean, increasingly Bellowhead, we're trying to get it all gigged before we record it. I mean, in fact, a lot of Burlesque and about half of Mattersham, we rehearsed. I suppose in a sense, we always play it live because we rehearse it live and then we record it live, but they weren't necessarily gigged in. And that's also, of course, true with my stuff. I work with Jon, so yes, I suppose in a sense that is true. Painted Lady was exactly the same process as Floodplain. I went in with the songs finished, but with no particular idea how I was going to arrange them, and the studio process was the arrangement. It's very interesting, yes, to see how, you know, how they affect an audience, basically, because it's you know, it was quite an intense experience writing it, so they were quite vivid in my head. So now to see them sort of out there is very interesting to see which songs the audience sort of, you can always tell when the audience are kind of there with you and when they're sort of, you know, wandering off. So no.